When most people think about printing money, you think about a printing press. The images of printing presses going wild with dollar bills shooting off of them. The reality is quite different. It's all done digitally today. We live in a digital age. So really, money is just numbers on a screen. I'm currently a vice president at Altamont Capital Partners, a middle market private equity fund based in Palo Alto. And I'm currently on a mission to demystify the world of finance through storytelling. So one of the most common questions I get today, where does all this money come from? You've got stimulus checks, PPP funds, Main Street lending program, all of this money being pumped out into the economy. But where does it come from? You can go crazy with the details of figuring this all out, but it's really quite simple. So let's dive into it. Most people assume that government funds all this spending with taxes, that they collect taxes and then use them to fund these programs. But the reality is actually quite different. We run a deficit, meaning we spend more than we bring in. So then where does all the money come from? Well, in simple terms, we borrow it. There are really three key players to be aware of in this dynamic: Congress, the Treasury Department, and the Federal Reserve, or the Fed for short. Congress jockeys over the legislation and authorizes the bill for a $1,200 check to all of these people. They pass it along to the Treasury Department. So the Treasury issues bonds, bills, and notes, which are essentially just IOUs. They're issuing a promise to pay back the borrowed money later with a little bit of interest. The buyers of these IOUs, who are providing the loaned money, can really be anyone: individuals, institutions, sovereign governments. But the big one that everyone talks about today is the Fed. And the Fed is an interesting buyer here because it has a magical power. It can actually create the money. But we're in the digital age. So when we talk about money printing, which everyone wants to talk about today, it's not the money printing that you know from historical examples, Weimar Germany, where they were printing money and putting them in wheelbarrows to take to the people that needed it. So the money printing that the Fed does is digital. Essentially, they can simply click a button on a screen and credit the Treasury Department with the money, purchasing the IOUs, purchasing the bonds and T-bills, and credit the Treasury with the money. The Fed then holds those IOUs on its balance sheet as assets, and that balance sheet has ballooned this year to over $7 trillion. So the clearer worry here is about inflation. Inflation really occurs, in simple terms, when you have too much money chasing too few goods. We don't really have that problem today. Much of the funding that went into the market, the stimulus spending, the government programs, is being used to plug a hole that existed due to the pandemic. However, the concern is that in future, if the government does not know when to pull back on all of these programs or pull back on the size of the Fed's balance sheet and its money printing activities, that you may have a situation where there is too much demand and not enough supply, which leads to prices rising, and that is the inflation that we talk about.
Invest in you. Ready, set, grow. CNBC and Acorns.